I can tell you something which you ain't gonna like, but I gotta tell you anyhow. In light of the most recent developments and interviews regarding the Mervie Knowles Saga, I wouldn't be surprised if she's hauled before the courts and in defense files a claim of insanity. Do with that as you may, but me, I'm gonna leave that right there. But I want to touch on another video that I did a few days ago where I would have told you that there are many Mervies in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and many of you agree to the tone of sending messages of your own personal accounts with dealing with very similar situations. And it brings to mind several things. There are so many lessons that can be learned from this. But there is a word that is floating around at this present moment regarding this situation, and it's the word neglect. And I want to touch on it for just a few minutes. So bear with me, go with me. I'm going to break it down for you. So when I think about neglect and I think about it in the elderly community, I think about it in three ways. So there are those that simply don't care. You know, the ones that the hospital says that they are left and never picked up and they just become a property of the state. Yeah, that's that type of neglect. I think that's direct neglect. And then I think there's this category where I just stand over here. I'm just the bystander. I don't want to get too much involved. I don't want to get my feet wet. But if you need a little grocery, I'll bring it. If you need a little medicine, I'll bring it. If you need a little ride, I'll bring it. If you need to sit and talk, if you want to visit, you know, I could call you, I could check on you. But I go check from a distance. I could care from a distance. And then there are those that really care. And I think this one here is the most hurtful. Those that really want to do right by the elderly. Those that want to be there, but they do not have the means to be there. They don't have the time, the resources, the finances. They simply just can't do it, or they just don't have the training to do it, to be able to be there 24/7 as a caretaker. You see, because that's not an easy job. Remember, I told you, I believe that anyone that is doing a caretaker job, it's a gifting, it's a calling. It's not just something you wake up today and sign up for. Because you see, I've been around some elderly people, and after a little while, I start to think that I doubt them, because I be looking around, the sky still blue, the sun still yellow. Listen, they love you, think you going crazy. It is not for the weak. And so I think that's where we find most persons. And when they get to that point, they end up having to resort to homes and facilities. And I don't believe that homes and facilities are all that bad. But the issue that comes to mind in this Mervie situation is that we need to enforce laws, policies, and regulations so that we do not have situations like this taking place, because people are genuinely reaching out for help, for care for their loved ones, because they're simply unable to do it for whatever reason. We cannot victim blame and we cannot victim shame, because when people say that they are a home facility and they are caring for the elderly, we can only believe that is what they will do. We can only trust them like how we trust a doctor, how we trust teachers in a school, that they will do what they say that they do. And so for me, I think it calls for persons in the governmental sector to enforce rules and policies and regulations. You see, we have an organization that controls schools. It's called NACOB. And as far as I know, I think one of the requirements for operating a school is to have a playground. How many schools can we drive around and see that they do not have playgrounds or areas of play or play facilities? I mean, it speaks to us not regulating. And so it is important for policies to be put in place. And then these policies must be given to the public. There must be a checklist. So if I am someone that has to take an elderly person to a facility, I should be able to go online and pull up this checklist and be able to use that, because we have to give our public information so that they can make informed decisions about where they're putting their loved ones. Also, it will help the government in making sure that these people are held accountable. Because the truth of the matter is, even though these facilities are subsidized by the most part by the government, many, or if not all of them, are not free. People have to sign up their NIB to pay it, or families have to go and pay the monthly fee or the weekly fee for those persons to be there. And so these things are designed worldwide to be a help to families when persons reach a certain age and there's really no one that can do it. And so they have to seek outside help. And so I don't think, even though we will call it neglect, I don't think it's outright neglect. I just think it's the current situation that someone may find themselves in. And so this is how persons like Mervie gets their hands in it. And we see it even with families, with people who stay at home. We have the sister or the brother or the aunt that will just make themselves the dominant figure. They will make themselves appear that they are the all in all. They are the go-to person, so that their name will be on the documents in the end. They will make it appear as if nobody else cares for the individual and it's only them. They will be there at the crack of dawn, at the break of day, at the end of the day. They will be there because they're trying to paint an image, even though there's an entire village who's being ostracized and pushed aside because they have an agenda. They want to get the person so entangled in with them that they can manipulate them to change documents. This is how people like Mervie slip in. And so this brings to mind my last point. As persons may have to resort to sending loved ones to these homes, it's also important, even though we need the government to make sure that these places are running the way that they're supposed to, there are nurses on staff and all of these different things, it also speaks to making sure that we're constantly checking. You see, when I look at this Mervie situation, I've watched the entire thing. If you're really, really invested and you really, really want to know all about it, go to the ZNS Northern page and you will find out the facts. And so what I think happened was Mervie assumed that this family was out the door, that the granddaughter was gone to another place and she wouldn't see her again. She knows she had to deal with the sister from time to time, but because the sister was at level 2, remember those levels I told you about? I come every Thursday and I check, but I could keep my little distance, So she felt because the sister, she could have wiggled her way around the sister and she would have never had to deal with the granddaughter again. And so if you ever find yourself in that position, this tells me that you got to keep checking. You got to keep going. You got to keep asking the right questions, because not everyone is able to keep their loved one, and we understand that. And we don't want to victim blame and victim shame. We want to hold those people accountable. And it starts with policies, it starts with regulations, it starts with the enforcement of those regulations. And then obviously it's incumbent upon us as individuals to constantly check. And so it is my hope and prayer that all of the things that are going on in regards to the Mervie saga will teach us as a country that we ought to make sure that we're looking out for the elderly community and for those of us in our personal spaces, that we are doing our very own part. May justice continue to prevail, and may all the Mervies continue to be exposed.